Welcome to Live Genre Chronicles, the newest era of our critical podcast about the diversity and development of Japanese RPGs. Every once in a while, we gather to discuss an RPG and its place in our understanding of the genre. I'm Val, and I'll be your main pawn on this journey.
Damn it, you preempted my joke! Which was, I'm Becky, taking advantage of the only chance I'll ever get to make Val my pawn.
Wow. I'm Leroy. I was given 10 fish, and now I love the Arisen.
True, that is how this game works. That's how Arisen works. So we're gonna be talking about Dragon.
You arisen them with the fish? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Where's that fucking Code Geass screenshot? Anyway. We're gonna be talking about Dragon's Dogma, which is a shut the fuck up, doll. Anyway.
Doll in chat. Val the Arisen.
Yeah. Anyway, Dragon's Dogma is an action RPG by Capcom from 2012 that got a re-release with its DLC and a lot of balance tweaks for the Dark Arisen release, which is what we all played and is the only way to play it basically these days. It's really fascinating as a game because I feel like a lot of games that are not like D&D branded don't go for just, we're going to have a bunch of fantasy monsters like chimeras,
we're going to kill the dragon. That's it, you know.
Yeah, that's the that's the Dragon's Dogma is we're going to kill this fucking dragon.
As opposed to the Dragon's Quest or the Breath of Fire.
But yeah, it's Capcom action RPG that is a little bit difficult to get into because of how the difficulty curve is designed, and thus got a lot of comparisons to Dark Souls, not helped by the fact that it has a stamina bar, which was relatively uncommon at the time for things that penetrated the Western market and discussions. I think
that's true. Like now, oh sorry, it's just everywhere now. But like you're right.
Yeah, it's a lot of people were like, oh, this is like Demon Souls if they were cool, big air quotes on that, or Dark Souls if they were up on people who were cool about Demon Souls. But the thing that like my first introduction / bit of awareness of this game was a zero punctuation review where my main takeaway was that this is a game where you like whore out your main pawn to other players by dressing them up all sexy, and I'm like, we have a lot of grievances with Yahtzee, but that one is like extra personal for me because it's just like,
yeah,
that is not the toad at all.
I'm
also gonna have a weird time discussing this relative to YouTube because I played this so long ago that it's the reason why we're talking about any of this. Me writing a post about it titled "This Silence Is Not Mine" is apparently what really sparked us into like talking and blogging more at each other in 2015. A full decade ago.
You can find This Silence Is Not Mine at silvergrinding.wordpress.com.
No.
/2015/04/08/this-silence-is-not-mine.
You didn't.
I may or may not have it open in another tab right now.
Now it's screen reader accessible. Thank you.
I haven't not touched that blog in 10 years, so cool.
Atop Hilfiger I sit, contemplating how best to find a griffin to slay.
I will mute you.
I love this piece of writing. I want to be really clear about that. Val posted this not long after the first time we met, and it has, for 10 years, has been one of my favorite pieces of games criticism. I think it is beautiful. And I told Val this. Thank you, Doll, posting the link in chat. I told Val this not very long thereafter, and for a decade, he failed to internalize that.
Yeah, to be fair, it was the two pieces of like input I got on that piece were that and the much more poignantly negative, what the fuck was this entire piece about? What was up with the first half of it? And it's just like reading comprehension. I don't know.
Yes, well, I mean that is also the tendency of the human brain to latch onto negative feedback. But that piece is about silent protagonists and the limitations of trying to tell involved and complex family stories, which this game certainly has the kind of ambition to try doing when the main character doesn't get to speak at all. And can only affect the world through quest completion and decisions about which quests to complete.
It's a very oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, which is then set against kind of the gameplay aspect of wanting to complete all the quests.
Yeah, it's a very appropriate criticism for this game, I think. Like, when I was doing the actual ending, I was thinking, like, it's kind of getting bigger than its silence, because we'll get into it, but I feel like the game is kind of contradictory because it's trying to be, it's a choice game. And a lot of the choices, what you choose to complete, and then who you apparently chose to be your beloved, that's a big choice. And but then like the other choice map is how you approach the fights, and these things don't really get along. But I think a lot of the game, I don't know, like these choices you pick kind of conflict with not really having much of a choice, right? So it's like a game of not choice, and I feel like the silent protagonist kind of accentuates that for me, I guess. It's hard to pin down that, but I felt like a tension or a contradiction or something that wasn't working for me.
I think like a lot of the choices, it just doesn't tell you that you're making a choice.
Yeah.
It's a game that is kind of assumes that your choices about how you play are going to be influenced by how you feel about the characters. And that is it is rare, especially if you think about 10, 15 years ago when this game came out. It is rare to think about. It is rare for players to actually do that. I think it's more common than it used to be. But I think among the kind of people who would have been discussing this game online when it came out, the expectation would be that no, you do everything. It doesn't matter whether you like or dislike a particular character. You're going to do all the things, and you're not doing it properly if you're not setting out to do all the things.
I would disagree with that, but only because this game is specifically and narratively built to be replayed with the foresight of, how quests will fuck up, or like, oh, you decided to not evict this family because fuck landlords, and then they died because their house is right on the hole that opens up in the city, and you get blamed for that by their kid, and it's just like, okay, maybe I'll avoid that next time.
Yeah, it does try to encourage the New Game Plus, like even maybe diegetically.
The way I would put it is that like a lot of the choices that you have, it's about knowing that there's a choice in the first place, not actually making the choice, because a lot of the choices are going to boil down to apathy or action.
So what it's like is you find out the game was grading you the whole time, but you didn't know the criteria.
Yeah, that's actually quite
good. When you're replaying it, you can have some guess of what the criteria was supposed to be.
Yeah,
and then I guess the silent character you also feel kind of voiceless yourself when you're playing because you actually don't know what you're doing, what you're choosing.
I guess we could say that there's a kind of symmetry in that the game is also kind of silent.
Yeah.
Right? It just keeps secrets from you. And there's a lot that's cool about that, to be clear. Like this maybe sounds like a negative discussion, or that I think me in particular is being negative. I don't mean that. I think there are lots of little details where I wish they'd done things a bit differently. But I always admire designers who are prepared to commit to this kind of approach when it comes to the game being silent, or the game withholding stuff. I think all that stuff's cool, fundamentally, and it gives the world that, the thing that I keep telling my students they can't call immersion. This discussion has actually been like, I've had some really good conversations with students this year about stuff that's relevant to this, so I'm kind of flashing back to classes I've been teaching. But the actual word I want to use is a term which I think was first used by Zoya Street in their book. What's it called? Their book about the Dreamcast. It might just be called Dreamcast Worlds.
I think that's what it's called, yeah. In
which they use the term worldiness, which is not realism and is not immersion, but is the... they're talking, I think in that case, about Shenmue, which is very heavily on this kind of... The whole thing being a dynamic system. Like Dragon's Dogma has that, because shit will just you'll discover stuff has happened, and I don't want to call it so. Doll and chat suggests verisimilitude. I don't want to call it verisimilitude because I think to me that means even more technically it's like reality, and I don't think this is a thing that is like reality necessarily.
Yeah,
specifically, I like worldliness.
Yeah, worldliness versus verisimilitude is just like one of them is a world that is happening, and one of them is adequately simulating reality so as to feel real, which I think that there is a meaningful difference. And
yeah,
this is not the latter because dudes respawn.
Well, yeah, Dragon's Dogma also underwrites that too. I want to talk. We'll probably have to talk about the ending more in depth, but it kind of acknowledges that it's like not real, not reality, or not actually real. Without it doesn't like reach across the aisle like some modern games and say, "Hey, it's a game," but it gets us close to doing that without breaking kayfabe, basically.
I am going to bring up a thing from Dragon's Dogma 2, which I recently started playing. There is like a mad rambling village elder who is who I've met, who has not gone remarked upon, who is going, "Hey, this world is a cycle. This is tiresome, but fuck it, we're living in a fake world." Which is like, I think Dragon's Dogma gets to have that because of how the whole setup is, but it is also a little bit modern game, winking at the fourth wall kind of deal.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind in small doses.
I think Dragon's Dogma of all games has earned it.
Yeah. Especially coming back after 12 years.
Yeah. I think also, like, that there is something very, very difficult to express precisely that, you talked about the fact it drew comparisons to Dark Souls. And I see why that happened, culturally speaking, but actually, to me, the good point of comparison is Nier. And it feels really of a piece with Nier to me, in terms of what it's actually like to play. It sprawls more than Nier. It doesn't do the kind of self-conscious camera trickery of Nier. But
I think
you can sense the shared technological context and how that shapes how the world is built.
Yeah,
I will say Dragon's Dogma is like fucking huge though, and yours is
Yeah.
is a bit more intimate.
I was going to I was gonna say like it is interesting. I swear I will not just talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 this podcast because we're not talking about the sequel. But it is interesting to see how. So like, okay, I wrote that piece in 2015, 2 years before Breath of the Wild came out, and I have said in our chat room that I would probably have had a lot of the same reaction to like silent protagonists and like being on my own as I wander through the wilderness to Breath of the Wild if I didn't have it with Dragon's Dogma first, and I think I would have been lesser. I would have enjoyed that less overall because like this is a world that is like one dukedom. Like there is one big city and a satellite fishing village. It is not a big world per se, but it definitely feels like where Nier was like trying to be focused on this really small region of like how all of these villages interact and stuff. Dragon's Dogma is trying to look like scope up a little bit, and it used all that space for like all the periphery and the smaller bits of life that were not. We have a castle town.
Yeah, it's naturalistic, or it's more naturalistic than Nier is for sure.
I think something Nier, Xenoblade, and Dragon's Dogma have in common is kind of Clockmaker's approach. Like they have a lot of really intricate systems to make it seem like the NPCs are doing things when you're not there, and that's actually I think that makes a big impact on how you approach and perceive all those systems.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of worldliness as a concept.
Yeah.
The thing I was actually
I like the Clockmaker analogy there. Actually, I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Because so much of this also, like Majora's Mask, is floating in the background of a lot of this stuff, and Clockwork is the perfect. You almost don't need to say an analogy for that. It's literally about clockwork.
Yeah. So the thing I was gonna say about Dragon's Dogma versus 2 is that Dragon's Dogma is still like, even when it's in its small spaces, like when you're inside a mine, they're still mostly like it's pulled back. It's like it wants to make you feel like you're seeing a lot because it's Gen 7. It's really self-conscious about making you feel like you're seeing a lot of stuff at once.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2 absolutely will pull in the field of view really close when you're in close quarters and makes it feel really claustrophobic in a way that is really fascinating as a comparison point. Yeah. I have wandered through like several mines and I'm like, oh god, it's really tight in here. And then a goblin jump scares me and I'm just like, oh fuck.
Yeah. To go back to the point about kind of the spacing out that constitutes a lot of its naturalism, I think one thing you get with Dragon's Dogma because of that is it is more like an actual medieval society, which is to say there are big, empty, unexplored parts of the map that are just full of danger. You wander into the forests in the western part of Grancis, and it's very easy to end up just fighting an endless stream of like goblins and saurians and wolves. And if you aggro something, it's really hard to run away. You kind of have to stand and fight until that thing is under control.
And it's there are reasons that the pawns warn you constantly about staying on the roads and not traveling at night unless you're prepared, because you will get jumped by skeletons.
Yes. Yeah. It's. I mean, it's an easy world to fall in love with. Like it's kind of a cheesy thing to say about games. I fell in love with the world, but I did fall in love with Grancis, absolutely. Like there was just a moment, very early in the game, where I was making my way from the road that leads from the encampment towards Gran Soren. There's that fork that goes up over the hill towards where the Witchwood is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
And for the third or fourth time, I'd gone up there and fought my way through all the bandits at the top, and I was heading down to the bottom to where that little ruined castle is.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh, it's got me now.
Yeah, that's the
Just
thing.
seeing that whole sweep of landscape.
That is the thing. Like, my time with the game the first time around in like late 2014, early 2015, I didn't 100% the game. I didn't even finish the game, but like, feel like 45% of the world that I did see absolutely floored me and stuck in my brain, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this place rules. I never went in Soulflayer Canyon, but like,
Yeah.
I knew about, I had the feel for the Bardic Crags and Deos Hills and Bloodwater Beach and like all these places when I came back to it with an earnest intent to like get over the introductory difficulty bump.
God, you saying that, and then that actually, and then the thing you said earlier about Breath of the Wild is like, oh, maybe I understand people who like Breath of the Wild again now. Because I played.
I don't.
No, so the thing is, I thought I understood people who liked Breath of the Wild, and then I played Breath of the Wild, not all of it, like the first half or so, and I was playing it going, this sucks. This is a rubbish world, and it's uninteresting, and the whole everything about traversal and weapon maintenance is a pain in the ass. But if you haven't played Dragon's Dogma or some other game that's given you that, which for me was Final Fantasy XII, I'm pretty sure. Like if you haven't had that experience before Breath of the Wild, then probably Breath of the Wild has that effect on you.
Okay, yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
You haven't seen that shit done well.
To be fair, like Breath of the Wild is Monolith doing their best.
Yeah,
I mean, Breath of the Wild. I'll be honest. Breath of the Wild feels like they rely on filler and generated environments. And I think there's a distinct lack of that in Dragon's Dogma. It feels.
Yeah,
it feels very zoomed in, right? And they actually apply like what I would call game design to environments that aren't environments that we normally don't expect like actual game design for it. What I mean is. The environments are simple, they're legible, but they're also as interesting as the size of like your viewport. Like when you're looking at things, it's they're assuming you're going to be looking here or there, and the environment has stuff placed there to look nice, right? I mean, that sounds crazy, but a lot of open world games don't clear that bar. Like Ghost of Tsushima they don't assume you're going to look in certain places of the game. It's just flat. It's just nothing. It's just places for you to walk through.
So I can give a concrete example of that, which is I put one of my port crystals at the healing spring that's in West Grancis, because it's quite a central location. So I was warping in there quite a lot. And the way the landscape is shaped around there, because if you spawn in there, you are immediately surrounded by goblins. There's a goblin pack that spawns right on the edge of the spring.
Yeah.
And so every time I warped in there, I was immediately in combat with a bunch of goblins and having to make sure that none of them blew their damn horns to summon infinite other goblins.
Should have been called Goblin's Dogma.
But like the folds of the landscape, the way that the shadows work, it was really frustrating to me in terms of like a play experience, because it's very easy to just miss a goblin because they're well camouflaged in that kind of dappled shadow that a lot of the trees give.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so effective for making that a fucky kind of encounter. And then if you move away from that, you move south, there's 3 or 4 different set piece encounters in that direction. There's one with a couple of trolls, and there's a golem up on a hill, and there's a chimera. And as you move downhill, once you've learned the game's design language, you know that there's this kind of really powerful sense of, I'm about to see a big monster.
Yeah.
and then you see a big monster.
Hmm.
It's really impressive. Like I definitely multiple times warped to that spot, forgetting that there's a chimera at the bottom of the hill, and then remembering there's a chimera in time to not just walk into it,
Hmm.
because something about the way the sight lines and the shape of the landscape builds tension is like, yeah, there's going to be
Yeah,
something.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, they have like a consistent mood or expression that happens in the different areas of the game. Like, and you can
Mhm.
like this is a case where you can identify what they're trying to express, and that goes into a level of open world game design that like most of these games don't care about doing. Like, they don't care
Mhm.
about what it feels like to actually play through it. They just want to make sure you know they have the right number of clock hours in there.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is like a lot of open world design feels like it's going to like it's trying to expand the space and not like make the space interesting first. And
Yeah,
Dragon's Dogma is like the right size to be packed full of interesting moments, just kind of spaced out adequately, and then they shape the land around them and how you move through it. And even if you're not walking on a literal path, you find your own like personal trails through all these little nooks and crannies and encounters, and you don't have to worry about it because you are so familiar with where all these guys are, and it's nice. It's a game sense that you don't often play games that are well developed enough in this sense to build, and it's nice.
Yeah, yeah. Doll in chat is raising questions about Baudrillard and Borges's on exactitude in science. I would love to have that discussion, but I would have to go and bone up on Baudrillard and Borges first, because I haven't read that Borges, and frankly, the Baudrillard is one of those French guys that I feel like you have to make a really deep study of to be able to comment on effectively, and I haven't. So
I mean, neither actually.
yeah,
I'm at the level where it's like, oh yeah, I could maybe pretend to know what I'm talking about, but I
I
haven't
can
actually read
listen
them.
to conversations about Baudrillard, but I can't really contribute to them.
Yeah, same. But I think, I mean, it's obvious they had a lot of confidence too in this, in what we're talking about, because of the, you know, the real time travel in the game and the stripped back fast travel. I actually don't know if the fast travel we're used to is standard yet. I guess it was in Oblivion. Oblivion had the location fast travel, so it was a
Mhm.
thing. But Dragon's Dogma did not do it. Right? They just said no.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think that was a really intelligent choice. It's a smart choice because it lets you have a relationship with these environments that they spend a lot of time on.
And even so, this is one of those things that's different between the original version and Dark Arisen.
Well,
Um,
there is a difference between the original Dark Arisen and the port that we got on systems that are not the original PS3 and 360, because the original, if you had a save file for it, when you loaded up Dark Arisen, you had Eternal Fairy Stone, which does cut out a lot of the frittering of funds for fairy stones.
Yeah, my first 20 hours, I was actually really stressed out just buying fairy stones. And sometimes I had to like not buy them, like I couldn't afford it. So I was just walking.
Yeah. But on the PC, PS4, etc., you just get that when you start the
Right.
game. But yeah, no, the limited fast travel is very fascinating. And
yeah. So to be clear, there are two aspects to fast travel. One is fairy crystals, fairy stones, which are in the original game single-use teleport items. They're consumed on use, and they can take you to anywhere that there is a port crystal. Port crystals. The other thing, are there only two fixed port crystals?
Three.
One at three.
um,
One at Grand Sorin, one at Casadis, and
Bitter Black Isle, which is the DLC area.
right.
In the
Yeah.
original, it's only outside of Grand Soren is the permanent one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you get a number of items called port crystals, which you can place in the world, and you can use those as fast travel points.
Mm-hmm. And
the thing is, so you have to actually go to the place on foot to fast travel there. You have to think about where you are going to place your teleport markers. And even with those placed, the world is big enough and hostile enough that anytime you want to go somewhere, even if you teleport to your nearest port crystal and the port crystal is fairly well placed, it's going to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Travel is going to feel weighty, and you can't travel faster than your sprint, which is finite anyway because of stamina, and the stamina recharge is slow. So getting anywhere takes time.
Oh my god, the system is actually like so modular too, because it's based on the weight of your character, it's based on your class and your stats. So you can sometimes you can sprint more, sometimes less.
And also there's Liquid Vim, which you can just chug for infinite stamina for
But it's another thing where it's like choices you don't know you're making.
Yep.
Although you can bring along like 20 mushrooms.
Yeah. So
I mean,
also
you can, but something like Liquid Vim is pretty rare.
Yeah, Liquid Vim is something I save for boss, like hard fights, because I
only ever managed.
You only have so many. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I only ever had 1 or 2 bottles, and both fights I used them in. Because of gimmicks in the fight, I wasn't actually able to use the bonus stamina effectively at all.
That's so funny. Sorry. It happened to me like once, so I know the feel.
When we get to talking about in more depth about the combat, we are going to have a lot of fun at my expense, and I've been resigned to that for a while, and it only got worse 20 minutes before we started recording, so...
Yeah. Also, exacerbating the port crystal thing is, so, like, we're talking about Dark Arisen, which has, by dint of its updates, significantly made the travel system kinder, because, like I said, the permanent port crystal placements outside of Casardis, the starting village, and also Bitterblack because it's DLC. But also, the first and only port crystal you can get to pick up in the original was the top of Blue Moon Tower. The other 4 were not in the base game.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So you better make use of that fucking forger.
Yeah. The forger is such a cool idea. Just like, here's a service where you can dupe items, including a bunch of side quest and plot important items, to sometimes hilarious effect, often very useful effect, and like, really, it's essential to not just to use that service, but to think of it as an intrinsic part of the design to get the best out of the game.
Yeah, like, there is a bit where you have to recover the Worm King's ring, and everyone's just like, oh, this is a really powerful artifact, and you pick it up, and it's just like, oh, this makes you cast faster. This has material benefit.
Yeah.
But I have to turn this in. What if I just make a forgery and turn that in?
Yep.
And that's a choice you can make if you know that you can forge things. And then also, when he tries to reward you, when the Duke tries to reward you using the ring, it doesn't work. So, because it has a chest that's locked that you get stuff out of, but he's just like, huh, well, I guess the ring's fucked.
What I like about that too...
Wait. Sorry. Is that the chest in the treasury?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. If you keep the ring and give him the forgery, can you open that chest yourself?
So you have to break into the treasury before he offers to give you the item. Because otherwise, if you're in there, like, when you go in there with him, it's just like, now isn't the best time to open this chest. And then when you come back, it's been moved because he's just like, we'll figure out how to open this so we can reward you later. He doesn't.
That is such a perfect example of what makes this game tick.
Yeah, I was gonna say what I like about it is that it's totally emergent, right? Like in a Witcher game, it'll just tell you straight up, like, do you want to give him the forgery or not? Like, so you can have this whole like they want to like put the choices right in your face, and it's instead of being a consequence, it's kind of like this scenario that they just handed you two cue cards, and you're like, well, I guess I'll do this
Yeah.
one. But Dragon's Dogma has a lot of things like that where it's just really cool the way the stuff works out like that. I don't really know how it's just cool, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it comes back to a lot of this is knowing that you have a choice to be made, and like then you can act on. How do I decide when my choices matter versus the Chad Dragon's Dogma? Oh
Yeah.
my god. Yep. That's roughly it.
I mean, the mention of The Witcher. So, one of my students did a project on Witcher 3 this year, and one of the points that they made was that The Witcher 3, yes, it shoves these choices in your face, but also it does the Dragon's Dogma thing of like unforeseen consequences all the damn time.
Yeah,
Val
it does.
mentioned the thing with the family that either you do what their landlord wants and evict them, or if you leave them there, they get killed by a natural disaster. The Witcher 3 is apparently full of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But my impression is that it feels a lot more shallow and prankish in The Witcher, precisely because the choices are made so explicit and kind of gamey.
It's also The Witcher 3 is not a game that expects you to like replay it, and it's very long. So if you're doing all the side quests, especially finding out like 5 or 10 hours later that you doomed some random person to get killed because of a choice you made, it's just like, oh, I'll get to it next time. No, you're not. You're not gonna replay this fucking game. Like,
Witcher is definitely not about like fixing or making things more explicit either. Like, it's really just about twisting the knife, which is kind of what you were saying.
mm-hmm.
It's just like this thing you thought was bad was actually worse, or this thing you thought you did a good thing, but actually it sucked. And then you look back into it, and both the options would have sucked at some point, type of thing.
Yeah, the specific bit that my student talked about was like, if a game did that to me, I would hunt down the developers because that sucks.
Yeah.
I think it's game designer's George R.R. Martin novel, and George R.R. Martin sucks too.
Dragon's Dogma like doesn't really judge you for those choices either. It doesn't like make that definitive. Here's the system statement, or here's this bad thing that's going to happen. I mean, there is the one with the family is kind of explicit, but I'm thinking about other ones like when you can intervene for Mercedes. Like there are 3 choices there. You don't even know there are 3 choices there, and they actually don't have these massive consequences on the game scenario. It's just like, what do you think is the right thing to do? Like, what do you think, right? And I think that's a more interesting way to set up choices in games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because we've had conversations on our casts before about like quote unquote superficial dialogue choices, like where the game offers you a dialogue choice, but it's not actually tracking your response at all. It's just kind of allowing you to shape the character's response to this particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Dragon's Dogma choices, like that Mercedes one, kind of feel a bit like that, but fleshed out because they're made through action rather than just a menu choice in a dialogue.
They do a lot of set design for it, so yeah, you do feel like it's like turned over to you now. You get to collaborate a little bit.
In a way, again, that's the point about like this game is actually designed, and every moment of it feels designed.
Yeah, totally.
That does mean that when it misfires, you really feel the misfires. Like the basically the whole Eleanor sequence.
Yeah.
Is so you become the Arisen, and you spend a bunch of time proving yourself to various levels of society, and eventually you get invited to meet the Duke. And you go to the castle and you meet the Duke, and as you're coming out from the Duke, you see a lady in the castle grounds. You have to go over and talk to her. This is Eleanor. It's the Duke's second wife, who is obviously kind of a young and very attractive woman who has been politically married to the Duke.
Mm, kind of that, kind of not, but yeah.
Was she not just like a consort? Like I thought it was like
She's a consort, but also she is.
I mean, she is the wife, but I thought she wasn't nobility before being married to the Duke. I might have
I
misunderstood that.
I am not 100% sure. What I do know is that the reason she's there isn't a political marriage. It's because he wants to replace his beloved, who the dragon stole, and put him on the throne.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why,
Yeah.
which is why that entire sequence happens, and it's rough.
Yeah. Anyway, she takes a shine to you and basically immediately invites you to visit her in her bedchamber, which you can do as the very next quest. And in the course of that quest, you get discovered there and thrown in jail. And then you break out of jail. You can rob the treasury during your jailbreak.
Mm-hmm.
Also, which is...
you don't even have to get caught. But again, choices that you don't know you're making. You either stay behind the partition or you come out and try and stop the Duke from choking out his wife. If you don't, she's just dead.
Yes, yeah, like, but,
it's rough.
You know, quote unquote, you're supposed to get caught there, and then you're out of the castle, and you would think that re-entering the castle would be a problem, would be a bad idea. You can just go straight back into the castle and pick up the next quest from the Duke's Seneschal.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, that whole thing is a really cool story loop that, because of being rushed, totally disintegrates. You know, if that had been, first off, you meet Eleanor in the grounds and you have a nice conversation, and then partway through the next batch of quests, there's like another exchange with Eleanor. Maybe she sends you a note or something. And then at the end of that sequence, when the game is ready for you to move on from acting directly for the Duke, that's when the fallout and the seduction and the jailbreak and so on happen, and then you actually can't go back to the castle for a bit. You know, it's a more orthodox structure, but also it would allow them to tell that story in a convincing way, rather than having it all happen immediately and clash dramatically with the other things you have to do to move the plot forward.
There's also like other side quests available in the castle. Like there's a conspiracy going on that you can try to intercept, and you have to go do a bunch of stuff for some people there that aren't related to the main quest. So it's like there was room to make this quest have room to breathe. It's just kind of weird, like flagging.
I think very. Oh,
sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say very simply, a lot of the side quests aren't very good in this game, and they're also at cross purposes where I'm never really sure what the priority in the quest is. Like, sometimes it's for world building, sometimes it's just for something to do, sometimes it is like a very contrived way to have a setup for your beloved later down the line. You don't know this, but they have all these different priorities and goals of the side quests, and very few of them actually develop. Very few of them actually feel relevant to what you're doing. And it's just kind of a mess. It does just feel like this is the part of the game where they expected to have stuff for you to do. So there's stuff for you to do. But I mean, you're absolutely right about the timing or the structure there. Like, they could have had a normal CRPG thing would have an A/B structure, right? You make this choice, now you get this set of quests instead. Like, that would be a very elegant way of solving that conflict. But Dragon's Dogma also loves to make you fail quests, so you could make this decision and then you fell out of other quests. You can come back in New Game Plus. Like, there was a lot of ways out of there that would fit into what they already had made, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah, and that's really the interesting thing about that moment, because again, having this kind of infidelity plotline with the Duke's wife is an interesting move. It's kind of in that area around like the reality of people's kind of romantic and sex lives that we don't see very often in video games. Like video game romance is usually incredibly like simple and fairy tale-ish when it gets to the point of consummation. That was really interesting.
I mean, if you fuck the Duke's wife in another game, there wouldn't be any consequences. And this game was like very close to there being something, right?
Yeah. Also, the jailbreak sequence is not really a jailbreak sequence because the guards just ignore you as you're walking out of prison, obviously dressed in prisoner's rags.
Yeah,
and then you
the quote unquote
walk into the treasury and
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because so much of the game works really well, and there's that note in the middle of it that one of the most interesting turns in the main plot just mechanically doesn't work because it's mistimed.
It's also not main plot. You can completely ignore her.
It's not main plot, but it's a pretty big story event, right?
It's actually one of the few things that like ties back in too, because it like gives you some insight into the Duke who is the failed Arisen. He's the other Arisen. He's not the Arisen type of thing. So he like actually I mean, it's a more significant side quest than like helping out Val whatever his name was, Val Miro.
Mm-hmm.
I think one payoff you get from doing that loop is that it makes when the dragon actually reveals what the deal is, which is actually another kind of Dark Soulsy moment of like you can sacrifice to continue the cycle, or you can take over and take full responsibility for the end of the world. Basically,
I'm gonna say actually it's similar. You're right. But I think Dragon's Dogma distance itself again because if you make the wrong choice, it boots you straight to game over and makes you retry. It doesn't actually count.
No, it is an alternate ending, but it's not a valid one.
Yeah, the voice of the game. The developers themselves are like, we gave you that choice, but actually do it again.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I didn't do that choice, so
I did it right away. I was like, okay, let's go.
Slaps you on the wrist. No, don't be a Duke, you idiot.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, the most interesting thing to me about the way the story goes is that you're so blatantly and clearly, like, explicitly even, trying to end the cycle. And then New Game Plus happens. And it's just like, oh, infinity is a lot larger than you think. If it can happen once, it can happen infinite times.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like driven home by the fact that when you beat the game, you punch God, you do the 1 damage you need to kill God once he's grappled by your bestie.
Which took me like 10 tries, I'm going to say. It made me so bad, but okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. He does fucking bounce around a lot.
Well, it's my pawn wouldn't attack him. That was my issue. But anyways.
God. Anyway, yeah, like, so once you kill the Seneschal, who is God waiting for you in the depths of the world, and you take his place, and then off yourself, and give your pawn a new life as you. New Game Plus is you, and then the pawn and Arisen that you had at the end of that fight are who you fight when you next get to the final boss.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Good grief.
That's actually kind of amazing.
That's if you're offline. If you're online, it's the last person who beat their game online. This is a New Game Plus only feature.
Okay, so it's actually like super intentional then, because I was thinking about that too, because you have this big, actually very creative set piece about figuring out yourself how to break the cycle, but then it goes right on to New Game Plus anyways. So it's like, Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
It's
right?
literally infinity is larger and more infinite than people realize.
It's like the that ability to become the cycle breaker when it occurs inside of a game is just another illusion. It just kind of reaffirms that it's still finite. You know, this game is still going to be subject to its own limits and limitations. Like, yeah, it like goes for the kind of fake deep thing, but then actually maybe makes it a little more deeper by just committing back to being a video game.
I'm going to tell a very 2015 joke.
Oh no.
Is Dragon's Dogma the Dark Souls of Dark Souls?
Yes, I
Yes.
guess. Actually, I mean, yeah, you know, because Dark Souls plays it all very straight, and it's like super convinced of this choice you're making, and then Dragon's Dogma underwrites it and kind of subverses it, and it's like, you know, this choice actually isn't that deep, and it really isn't that deep. I think Dragon's Dogma is right.
Mm-hmm. And that is especially why Dragon's Dogma 2 just having a crazy old man who's just like, this shit is all fake. I really want to be outside of this fake world. This is so fucking dull. It's just like, okay, you get to make this joke. I don't know if this is foreshadowing for Dragon's Dogma 2, a game which, when I booted it up, says Dragon's Dogma, not Dragon's Dogma 2, and I'm still on edge about that.
Yes. And
that's pretty funny too.
Yeah.
I think that is maybe the best testament to what these games have managed to do, that they can put you on edge about that specifically. Like,
yeah,
that's really good. That's a hell of an achievement.
Dragon's Dogma 2 is also like way more explicitly like, fucking live with what you've done, because NPCs can die. You have to and permadeath. There's a thing that happens where if you fight a dragon, not just if you beat a dragon, but if you fight a dragon, sometimes they get infected with the dragon's plague. And then if they get too unruly, the next time you sleep at an inn, which you have to because of the mechanics, they kill everyone in sight. Also, there's the whole Sphinx thing. There's a series of quests where you have to do riddles for a Sphinx, and if you fuck up once, you don't get to do it again until New Game Plus. So that game is gonna be fascinating to chew on.
Yeah. It's been really fun watching you chew on it.
There's another game comparison that comes to mind, actually. Like, in the Elder Scrolls, like deep in the Elder Scrolls lore, they kind of, this is a cheeky thing. Like, I don't think the developers were aware of this stupid crap, but in Oblivion specifically, they came up with this concept of Chim, which is like the spiritual ascetics in Elder Scrolls are able to understand that the world is actually a game, and they break free of the bonds of it or whatever. And kind of the fan lore is like, when you're modding the game, you reach Chim, ha ha ha. But Dragon's Dogma's whole setup kind of actually, problematizes or makes fun of that kind of dynamic where it's like, oh, you realize it's a game, you overcome it, but no, it's still a game. Like, there is no Chim.
It's also like, when you do reach godhood, you can go wander around the 2 towns that exist.
I did it for so long because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
That was actually the part that made it really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's just like, you have reached godhood. You are, you are above this all now. That means you're not allowed to involve yourself with any of these people anymore. Right.
Like, I thought something else was going to happen, so I was just walking around invisible. I even explored the town for a bit, like if I missed the trigger or something. So so it actually endeared me a lot because I spent a lot of time doing it. But I think that shows more confidence that they made this big set piece and then don't tell you how to end it or get out of it. Because I probably repeated that 4 or 5 times before I was like, okay, wait, I probably need to do something because it's not progressing.
Yeah. Right, we should talk about, like, how you actually play the game. Because I feel like... So... I enjoyed this game a lot. I like it a lot. I'll be thinking about it for a long time. I feel like I didn't really engage with the game very much.
Yeah.
Because
you might have had a better experience. I think there's diminishing the returns the more you engage with it. Also,
sure, but it's clearly I don't want to talk about the intended experience because I think that's such a rhetorical trap. But there's a huge amount of stuff in this game in like choosing and fine-tuning your class and build and weapons and your pawn and which pawns you recruit and what instructions you give them, and I really didn't engage with any of that.
it's a combat sandbox. Like even before Elden Ring was like, I don't know, like it kind of has the same priorities as a game like Elden Ring. Just not as much content.
It's also like it's not as concerned with like restricting you to not be OP. Like they didn't really balance this to be like hard. They just balanced it to like you need to level up.
Yeah, it fucks you over like in the first 20, 15 hours. And then when you get past that initial that initial hump, it like plateaus really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Which is itself kind of interesting, but the big mismatch I felt is that if you keep playing the game, if you want to do all the quests, it gets really tedious because once it plateaus, that's it. Like they didn't add anything else until Bitter Black Isle, but there's a lot more content you could do, even though there's no actual like the parts of the game aren't matching up. There's no actual new fights to do. But there's still a lot of crap in the game that just involves the same fights, the same locations, the same things.
The thing that like I would say is like because of how the like all the calculations work, there are 9 classes. They all give you different stats on level up, and those aren't like multiplied or anything. Like you don't have a different stat arrays when you go to different classes. You just get different levels when you level up in that class. So you can min-max the shit out of it. But largely, the thing that will happen is that you will hit an enemy that you're not doing quite good damage enough to deal with in a reasonable time frame. You will go, fuck, I need to go leave and get like 2 or 3 levels elsewhere fighting things that I actually can do damage to. And then the damage calculation will be like, oh, you're not doing like 1 damage anymore because your stats are better. It's either that or get better equipment. Because just like,
or remember to go back and get new pawns who are on level for you.
Yeah. Because that largely that's the solution is your attack higher than their defense? Okay, you're doing damage.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I didn't even pay attention to the pawns so much. Like I basically went in and I grabbed a Strider and a Sorcerer at all times. And I made sure one of them had, like, it was either that or getting a mage with a healing spell, because I was doing something that needed sustain. But, like, it was just, like, on-level girl, something that can do damage.
I had a hard time with the pawn system. I got frustrated about it. I got frustrated by a lot of things in the combat system, actually. I think the most frustrating thing for me, though, is just how restrictive so it's like a combat sandbox, but there are a lot of restrictions on how you get to customize your character. And the restrictions, there's like a lot of different prohibitions, actually. Like, the skills are tied to the weapons you have equipped. So if you have to switch weapons if you want to use different skills, which means going through a bunch of loading screens and switching the weapons was annoying. And then you have to carry around those weapons if you want to have status effects or more weapons, which means more weight, which means now you're moving literally slower in the game. I mean, that's not the most annoying thing, but you get like 10 or 15 skills, but you can only use 3 at a time, and that one is very prohibitive. But then also you can only change those skills at like rest spots or ends. And then a lot of these skills are only useful in certain fights or encounters. And you don't know what you're going to fight or encounter beforehand. So I don't understand all these prohibitions. Like, I don't understand what the goal is, except to feel what you don't have when you go into battles. You feel, oh, I wish I could have had that, or I should have had that, but you can't actually go and get it. And that frustrated me. that was a consistent frustration for me. I think
you can change weapons in combat.
Yeah, you can change weapons in combat.
Because you have to sheathe your weapon, and like make sure you're still in control of the character, and then you
Yes.
can go into the menu and switch. And
And I think the idea is like your pawns are supposed to compensate for what you don't have, but sometimes this literally doesn't work, or at least like you really shouldn't play a warrior class, like literally just the red warrior. Like I don't remember they're called, fighter and warrior, I think.
Yeah.
Because the pawns are sometimes the pawns rely on like their own experience with fighting enemies, right? So they haven't fought an enemy enough time, they're actually literally going to do nothing. And there are fights in this game where that like breaks down. Like if you're fighting specifically the metal golem or the white, and you are a fighter or a warrior, you either cannot even do it at all, or it's going to take you forever and be really irritating.
Mm-hmm.
And your pawns should do things and they don't, and that just made me so like, why did they do this?
So like the pawns.
Sorry, can I just jump in on Metal Golem and White? In the Everfall, which is the dungeon you do after killing the dragon and before the true end of the game, there is a set piece encounter that is a Metal Golem and a White, and I stumbled into that one without realizing, and I couldn't do anything because I was a pure melee character. So I couldn't attack anything that was high off the ground, and my pawns just wouldn't. Because they have to, like, those are both fights where you have to attack things that are high up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sat there for like 20 minutes until I gave up.
Yeah, and you didn't
I read
need to
that
do
pawns,
that fight, so...
I read pawns will fight those enemies if they fought them enough times, but it's like, it's so chicken and egg. Like if they can't beat them, then how are they going to get that experience?
That's
also, I think there's like 2 metal golems in the game, so it's just so awkward.
Yeah. They're not common. The thing is, like, so... Yeah. The thing about pawns is, I mentioned at the start of the episode that like Yahtzee made it sound like this game is about like whoring out your pawns, which is not accurate, but it is, especially when the game was more populated by people who are actively playing the game. It was the sort of thing where like you pick up random pawns on the road that you meet who you can afford to hire with your rift crystals or whatever, or are on level with you, and you go on adventures with them, and you all kind of learn how to fight these things together. They take that information home to their master, it helps them out, and then whoever hires your pawns does stuff with them, brings you back information, and helps you out. It's like, I made the comparison to like going on an adventure and meeting people on the road and stopping and sharing tips on how to deal with the different monsters. And it kind of has that vibe when it's working well, and it's not.
Yeah, it like approximates a MUD or MMORPG in a single player game, and like it really does. Like it's not a fake thing. It's more an approximation than like Dark Souls summoning NPCs. Like that stuff feels very, I don't know. It doesn't feel the same to me. Even the summoning system where you're summoning players, like they're literally in your game, so that's just multiplayer. So it doesn't have that weird in betweenness. Sorry, yeah.
Dark Souls isn't a game where there's a more in-depth solution than just hit the motherfucker. Like,
yeah, I mean, you could try to pretend there is, but really, like that one always works. So
yeah, where like, oh, if you fight a chimera, there are multiple ways to fight a chimera in Dragon's Dogma. If you kill the lion head first, the goat will start controlling the body, and it will get higher physical defense. You can cut off the snake tail so it's not spewing poison everywhere, or you can just beat up the goat first and make the lion's magical defense stronger, depending on how your pawns are laid out. But,
yeah, that fight's really good. What are you gonna say though?
I was just gonna say, like, none of that is gonna hit in like a Dark Souls. Like, as much as Dark Souls fans want to be like, oh, it's really good, and like, no, it's punching things in the knees until they stagger. Like, let's be real.
I think Dragon's Dogma does have these fights that are very dynamic. They have lots of ways to approach them. Every single class can fight them, and I love those. And that's why I get even more mad about when they do these other fights that don't work like that. I don't understand. I mean, probably the answer is just they're behind schedule and they didn't get to finish the game. But
I think
is
part of it is just like they expect you to be doing these fights a lot, so there's just going to be a learning curve on some things. So like, if you're gonna go fight a metal golem or a white, you're gonna bring, people who can deal with long range stuff. Bring a strider or two.
Yeah, or you just have to change your class. Like I guess that is the expectation.
Yeah,
I'm just that's just like not. It feels unfair to me. It feels like I don't want to play that class. Like this is a game that presents all these choices, but sometimes takes them away, and it's just I don't know.
Sometimes choices are the wrong choice.
Yeah.
That's Dragon's Dogma. Slaps you away from the Duke, getting no, you have to go fight the dragon.
I just wish it was more permissive, because then it feels like it just makes more sense, because there's all these classes and all these choices, but they're actually like some of them, like a lot of things you can do in the game actually suck and you shouldn't do it. So it's just the balance could be better in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I don't like games that are what you called kind of combat sandboxes. Like, it doesn't interest me to do that stuff. And so I didn't in this game. I started out as a fighter or whatever they're called, and then went to assassin and stuck with that for the entire game. And I just found moves that I liked using that seemed effective, and then climbed on enemies, and that was fun. Like the climbing on enemies is not Shadow of the Colossus standard, but it's pretty versatile and pretty fun. And there's a there's a lot going on there, even without worrying too much about, am I using exactly the right weapon? Have I optimized my stats? That sort of thing.
It's such a different game when you're underpowered, because it's actually pretty strategic. Like, you need to be really cognizant of what's going on, where your pawns are. Like I found myself fighting in formation when I was underleveled, which was like wild. Like I don't usually do that in a 3D RPG. Like that seems a bit extra, but it was like really necessary for a while until you like a crew power. Like the combat does work when it works.
Yeah, I think there are two different modes for this game, and one of them is you're equipped for the situation, and you're not equipped, but you're too stubborn to go change.
Yeah. Well, I think what you really need to do is you need to curate for yourself, and you need to pick the right things for the job. And I am someone who doesn't like I don't like customizing a lot for combat games, and I don't like having to curate for myself. I feel like, I don't know, I just get stressed out about it. It's just too much crap. And I want to pick something and just use it the whole game. And so when games don't let me do that, I'm like, why did you let me pick it then? That's the kind of trap that annoys me. But it's true. Like, you're supposed to curate yourself. I am playing the game wrong. It's the same with like kind of the quests in the game. You're kind of really supposed to curate your own experience. You're not supposed to do all of them. I did all of them and it sucked. Like, so,
yeah.
When you play Dragon's Dogma, you should pick a magic archer and you should do the main quest. And then you'll have fun.
I did have fun playing as an assassin, and like using the daggers leveled up closer move. If you don't mind just mashing the same button over and over again, it's good fun because you're just zipping all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sword move that's like I think it's called Dire Gouge.
For when you're climbing,
which is just like,
yeah, Dire Gouge is really fun.
When you're climbing on an enemy, you get to a weak point, you do Dire Gouge, and it counts as holding on to the enemy with both hands, so it's very hard for them to throw you off. And also, for as long as you're in place doing the move, it's pretty significant damage over time. And you just kind of... Like, I literally just rode the dragon's chest for a minute, and it died. After 20 minutes of running around its feet trying to figure out how to get onto its chest. But
I'm its legs. They're attached to the chest.
I really struggled to get round the from the leg onto the chest. It knocked me off a few times doing that for whatever reason. And I kind of gave up on trying for a while. And then I things were going badly. I just went for it, and
So the secret is Magic Archer and Mystic Knight are both really busted, but take a little prep to get going. Also, no, doll. Becky didn't turn Dragon's Dogma into a Muso. Becky turned Dragon's Dogma into Nier with the spear moveset. That's literally just what you did.
coincidentally, I also turned Nier into Nier with the spear moves.
Exactly. You are a bit alchemist, Eve. Shut up. Also, shush. But yeah, it's there are reasons to play all of the classes in this game, but like you're going to get the most power out of playing all of them and then synthesizing a better build. And
Yeah, it leans a little bit to that Final Fantasy V style, right?
Mm-hmm. There are no spears in this game, Momo. Sorry.
Yeah, there should be. It'd be good with spears.
That's the second game where they gave a dual-sided spear like you're playing Monster Hunter Interglaive to a Virgil motherfucker, and it's just a lot. Mystic Spear Hand fucks, and also way overkill sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah. The other thing we have to say, so this is a perfect exemplar of how I played this game. I only discovered 20 minutes before we went live that this game has dodge rolls.
Yep.
Long-time listeners of our podcasts will remember that I have in the past divided all action RPGs into parry games and dodge games, and said that I like dodge games and I don't like parry games because I suck at parrying, but I'm quite good at dodge rolling.
Well, you could do both in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do either because I suck at parrying, and I didn't discover that it has a dodge roll until an hour and a half ago.
Yeah,
the parries are pretty strong. It's fun.
Yeah, the parry is the entire basis of the Mystic Knight class, and that can shred. So the thing is, so there are three basic.
I have 43 hours in this game, and I did not find the dodge roll, despite repeatedly thinking I wish there was a dodge roll.
Yeah, it's almost
I'm
like
using the weapon that the dodge roll move is on.
When you say something.
Because every other time that I've complained about an action game not having a dodge roll, it's been futile, and I've been mocked for it.
Oh, fair.
It has not been. It might have been futile, but we didn't mock you for it. Jesus Christ. This is why you check the skills that you're buying with the discipline you're building up for playing the one class.
I didn't even realize those skills did anything till a while in. Then I read them. I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm. I was really bad at remembering to go back and spend discipline, but also there were times where I remembered and then I spent a long time looking at the things and somehow didn't see dodge roll.
That's because it didn't have the word dodge in it, so your brain didn't twig that it's a fucking forward roll with iframes.
Mm-hmm.
Good grief. I was gonna say, I know.
This is a domain in which my intellect is not terribly effective.
This is learned helplessness. We will fix this.
I've seen this a lot for, just it's kind of like a type or play style where if it's too busy, someone's just like, nah, I don't want to really engage with this. It's like I've tried to get people to engage with it, but it just doesn't work, and I think that's fair, I guess.
I'm really bad at picking things up from text in games or in any context, really. Like, I suck at cooking from recipes because it's written instructions. I can't do that.
This is why I'm gonna be in charge of cooking anyway.
You just need a coach.
Footage.
Like you need someone to be like standing behind you and telling you.
What I need is to be able to see someone else do the thing.
Yeah, you need,
I
you
learned
need
very
a
well
personal
by
trainer.
direct observation. And the reason that doesn't work for video games, and especially video games like Dragon's Dogma, is because try to find a video about a game like this that is giving that kind of information rather than here's how to optimize your build to take all the fun out of the game by making you stupidly OP.
Right.
Right? Like the video content just isn't there for video games generally.
This is false about this game. Anyway.
Why don't think people are gonna make like a video tutorial of how to play a game? Like it really actually doesn't happen. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it just doesn't happen.
I'm literally saying this is false about Dragon's Dogma in particular, and if you had asked for help, I would have been able to give it to you.
I mean, not asking for help is an element of learned helplessness on my part. I'll come to that.
We're gonna get you better than that. We have a long time to work on that. Anyway, I was going to say, there are 9 vocations. 3 of them are quote-unquote basic. They're what you get to start with. Then there are advanced, which your pawns can also do, which have a different set of weapons that they can use that are more powerful, but come with downsides like being slower. And then there's the hybrid, which is basically... it hybridizes the 3 basic vocations, so you can use the items from both of the ones that it's hybridized in. There's Assassin, which is Fighter and Strider. There's Magic Archer, which is Strider and Mage. And then there's Mystic Knight, which is Fighter and Mage. And we all have unique stuff, too, I think. Actually, I don't know if Assassin does have any unique items. I think it's just like it can use daggers, bows, shields, and swords.
Yeah, it doesn't have like its own thing. It just gets to do the most things.
Yeah, which is, useful. And it also has stuff like Dire Gouge, which is stick a sword in it till it's done.
The kind of the progression is like skilled out for New Game Plus as well. I believe, because I got all the assassin skills when I was at the Everfall, and I'm like, cool, I could change my class now, but I won't be able to clear the content, so I just kept playing assassin.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I did some cheesing to get double discipline rings, so I had access to like 4 classes worth of stuff by the time I hit the end of the game. And I ended up rolling Magic Archer after doing Strider Mage, just because, like, it's really funny to have homing arrows, because it's homing arrows that do elemental damage on different skills, that can do room clearing, or you can just stick a bunch of explosive bolts in guys' faces and then pop them. Yeah, it's fun. Mystic Knight takes a little bit of preparing, because it's like you can it has weapon enchants. A thing we haven't talked about is like the elemental resistances in this game are really, really firm rules, which is not usually the case in RPGs like these. Usually they'll let you get away with playing with the wrong element, but
This is also a case like Becky's pet peeve, where they don't really have good visual indication of who's going to be weak to what. It's just like, you got to know that. Or your pawn has to tell you or something.
Yeah, like, basically, in a vacuum, you would probably want to have your pawn kitted as a mage, or you could play as a mage with a bunch of different elements, and then just kind of fling them out there at new enemies and see what sticks. And then your pawn would remember that and go, goblins are weak to fire, or isn't?
Yeah, every single time you see a goblin.
Wolves ill like fire. Wolves also hunt in packs, which is the meme you will see fucking anytime this game is brought up, because you see wolves so often, and they will always shout that.
And I mean, usually by the time they've shouted that, you're already in the middle of fighting a wolf pack.
Yup.
Because the wolves move super fucking fast when they aggro.
Yep.
I had Japanese audio on, so like the meme for me was Goblin Desu and then Ningen da. Because yeah, the goblins will also bark. They're funny.
Yeah, they sure will bark. Oh, that just sorry. My brain went to playing Borderlands 2 with the Japanese audio, which is oh, that's a certain level of hell. It's fine. I'm normal. Anyway, yeah, like it's honestly interesting. I brought this up, but like it's really funny how much of this game's monster roster is stuff you could just find in like generic fantasy. Because like
I mean, the game feels like someone's Unreal Engine passion project sometimes, right? Like it's just like they're just kind of airdropped in there.
Yeah.
Which is really it's cool because it's not what you expect from this design space anymore. It's I don't want to call it. Well, yeah, I'll call it. It's kind of it's like it's endearing, but it's a little bit naive. But it's in a way where, like, you could see it's from. They're kind of looking through the lens of the other, I guess. Like they're taking an interest into these symbols that fantasy in a Western context is kind of like not taking as seriously anymore. And Dragon's Dogma like takes them really seriously again, and actually it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it definitely feels like someone who was really fond of like maybe second or third edition D&D was just kind of flipping through the monster manual and was like, hey, what can we put in our fantasy action RPG? And the answer was, goblins, wolves, chimeras. That's pretty cool. How about ogres? Yeah, trolls. Yeah. What about a fucking beholder? There's a beholder on Bitter Black Island named the Gazer, and it's fucking enormous, and I love it.
The beholder fight slaps so that like
the little one,
the plot necessary one.
Yeah, the Chamber of Confusion one.
So much.
It's really funny.
Like it's annoying how good it is at shaking you off. But
complaints that you would have, yes.
Well, it
the Hydra fight's optional too, but it's pretty fun.
Hydras are fun too.
I never found the Hydra in the Everfall. I got my 20 stones before that because I think I had weirdly good drop luck. Doing the collect 20 stones in the Everfall bit.
And that dungeon's pretty modular too. Like you could just do it in order.
As long
the
as
the Everfall is a really cool dungeon. Like you're actually falling through it, and there's a bunch of places you can land on, and then you choose to land where you want to go, and there's a discrete little chamber, some rooms, and some fights. And I've never seen a dungeon like that. It's just actually extremely cool.
Yeah, it's also interesting because it's like, okay, there are 16 rooms or 16 chambers named different things. And like once you clear them out, most of the time, if there's a big monster in there, you can leave and come back, and there's a different big monster in there. And it's just like they really jammed these motherfuckers into this dungeon. But this also means that like sometimes you will just go, oh, I beat the other. I can't beat this encounter. I want to swap to the other one. Guess I can't. I will need to come back in a week's game time. So there's an encounter that I got, and I was just like, okay, this is fucked up. I literally cannot touch this encounter. What the fuck is going on? And I go in the wiki and I go, what is with this room? And the other encounter is just like normal. And then there's 2 gore chimeras and a white. And I'm just
oh my god.
Oh. That is, as the wiki states, the hardest encounter in the base game. Because there's 2 gore chimeras, which will fuck you up one at a time, and also a white who automatically summons a pack of hellhounds.
Jesus.
Yeah, that I would. I don't even. I don't know. That would piss me off. It would take me forever.
No, I literally gave up. Like I was just like, no, I'm doing other fights, and then I went and fought a Hydra or an Archhydra, sorry. And I was just like, yeah, I'll take the infinitely regenerating piece of shit relative to two giant cats and a white. Yeah. Also, yeah, dull. Dragon's Dogma does have a distinct aesthetic that really does come through in the way that they designed, in little ways, along the way they designed these enemies that could be seen as kind of normal for, like, you know, tabletop fantasy fodder. It's and
I don't think I don't think the monsters look that unconventional relative to
What I like is there is the conventional version, and then there's the fucked up version after you beat the dragon, right? So you have the griffin, just a griffin, but then you have the cockatrice, which even though it's a recolor of the griffin, it does look kind of bizarre. It looks kind of fucked up.
And then there's also, like, oh god, what is it? Like, there's another griffin.
And then you have goblins, but then you have grim goblins.
Yeah. And also, like, after you beat the dragon, yeah, that is more or less accurate. The monsters look like medieval depictions of said monsters. It's also just like, so after you beat the dragon and the world fucks up, everything gets way more dangerous, and you will just, you know, oh, I'm gonna go outside Cassardus to the beach outside of town. Oh no, there's a gore chimera there now. The game, once you kill the dragon that was holding back all the bad shit, it's way more willing to just, like, throw things at you. It's really funny.
Yeah, you walk outside Grand Soren and there'll be like 12 succubus, which are reskinned, whatever they are. But then there's also, you'll probably encounter a dragon. There'll be grim goblins. Like there'll be hellhounds. Like I actually died out there when I was really high level, and I was like, oh, okay.
I don't think I went outside of town.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
After beating the dragon at all.
Oh, it's really cool, that part. It's interesting too because I associate that maybe with like a last disc turn, like it's like the meteor coming out in Final Fantasy VII or the cage dropping in Tales of Destiny. But yeah, in Dragon's Dogma, it's optional to engage with this cataclysmic, world-changing thing. Like you don't really need to. You don't really need to explore anymore. But most of the enemy camps change during that part of the game.
Yeah, there's like, it gets called the post game because a lot of people reasonably consider killing the dragon the final boss that matters. And like the world does transform in a lot of ways after that happens. And playing around in the post game world is fun but also stressful because everything's a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
And then also, if you want, they put a Vagrant Story dungeon in in the game with Bitter Black Isle if you want to go like fight death and shit, and get more lore about the Arisen and past Arisens. Yeah, it's hell of a game. I don't know what that means. Blaseball's party time. That's ominous. As always, Blaseball is ominous.
Yeah. Yep.
At the time I heard about Blaseball, it was already over, basically.
Really?
Yeah. Or at least, like, really too far in to get into it.
I feel like I remember seeing it more or less from the start and just not engaging. And then just hearing it go full Homestuck over the course of about 4 years.
Yeah, no, I just, like... I was not going to engage with it, and then by the time it was like people are going ape shit. Also, yeah, Doll has a point. You would see it. You're into sports. I am anti-sports.
But it wasn't like actually connected to sports at all at first. It was just like, here's some nerds making jokes about sport on the internet.
What makes you think I would see anything making jokes about sports on the internet?
You see a lot of nerds making jokes on the internet.
Not about sports! I don't care about sports. There are a lot of things I will care about enough to, like, find. Sports is not one of them.
Fair. Anyway, it's over now, and none of us are ever going to understand it, so...
Yep. Unlike Homestuck.
Which I understand, sadly, all too well.
I don't know that that's true, but, you know. Yeah, that when the team is mathematically eliminated, they're in party time. They cannot stop partying. That's Grancis after the dragon's dead. It's an eternal party. That's why all these guards are swarming around me. It's a party. The fucking fact that the guards just swarm you infinitely, and that's the easiest way to farm fucking discipline is so goofy.
That's the part where I used like wheel or something and farmed gold for a little bit too. That works too.
That also works. It's so goofy. This video game is goofy. It has a lot of really, really goofy mechanical edge cases.
And it has a lot of crunchy systems, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of like explore them and do funny stuff. There's a lot of cheese you can do.
Yep. Very much the sort of thing that a lot of people will have and will make a bunch of videos about doing weird challenges in.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned tabletop games several times this cast. I think it's worth saying this game is tabletop as hell.
Yeah.
Like, just all sorts of like random bits and pieces of good ideas thrown together. You know, chopped good idea salad.
Yeah. So I also like we watched Grimoire of Zero and The Dawn of the Witch recently. Hey, we have an anime podcast. Sorry about promoting this, but also, wow, anime. Anyway, those shows are very, and I think probably also Chaika will be in this vein of like genre fantasy that would not be out of place as like kind of the whole like, you know, Record of Lodoss War. It's like a record of like an actual tabletop campaign turned into fiction, that kind of deal. I feel like this would also be the kind of thing that wouldn't surprise me if it was based on an actual tabletop campaign of some kind. Like that, it has that kind of like mouthfeel to it, for lack of a better word. And maybe, and for better or worse, some of the writing choices do kind of feel like, yeah, you sneak into the Duchess's bedchambers, and then the jester makes a joke about it. It's just okay.
The way a lot of quests just kind of meander off and don't finish, it feels like, yeah, this was GM'd, right? Sorry, what were you saying?
Well, to put a more positive spin on that, that does go some way to the thing about it all being designed, right? One way that we could describe that is it feels like handmade, that somebody was making every decision.
For sure.
This isn't like a complaint or anything. This is just like it feels like someone has thought through this process at least.
Yeah, it feels more human than a lot of these games reach too, because they're trying to, I don't know, they're trying to arc everything or make sure everything's polished to best practices or whatever. Dragon's Saga was a little more messier, but in a way that's often endearing.
Yeah, that point about it feeling human is a big part of why it feels similar to Nier to me. Like, just like you can't escape not the artificiality of it, but the madeness of it, the art of it. You know,
yeah, like
intentionality.
it's the sort of thing where, like, these are messy strokes made in a painting that tell you that it's real and someone was maybe fucking up a little while doing this, but they were doing it in full sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
Which, unlike maybe a decade ago when we started this podcast stuff, feels a little more relevant now given the whole AI art bullshit that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
This also coming, like, genuinely unrelated, but I found out that the Stalker games got enhanced editions, like, in the last week.
Yeah.
And, AI upscaled everything.
Boo.
Yeah. It's not great. But yeah, do we have anything else we want to talk about? Or we find revealing our next game?
I think we can move on to that.
Yeah, I said everything I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us.
We're doing more dragon themed stuff.
Stop trying to
Sort
preempt
of.
me, goober.
Dragon Tales.
Thanks for showing up for Live Genre Chronicles, and we've been talking about Dragon's Dogma game. Before that was a Dragon's Quest game, or a Dragon Quest game that was not good, which was Mother 3. And then we're gonna be doing a couple more dragon games that we were planning to get to in the Year of the Dragon and not this year. Up next is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, which is a precursor to Dead Rising systemically, which is funny, and I've had to explain this to Becky, but it's fun. We have some defenders of Dragon Quarter in our chat. Amy's here somewhere, I bet, but but yeah.
Do I have to watch Dragon Half before playing Dragon Quarter?
I don't know. Are we
Wow.
watching that? Are you?
Maybe. I watched a couple of episodes of it once. It was a goofy show.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's been us. Val. No, we're not watching that. Also, that's not the name of our podcast. Anyway, yeah, Becky and I are doing an anime podcast now.
Yeah, join our Discord for links to that, or like full launch for official season 1 in July. Also, I have plugs.
Yeah.
Because since last time we recorded, I have released 2 little experimental tabletop games on my itch page, which is after-icarus.itch.com, itch.io. And yeah, you can find them on there, and also some short stories from ages ago. And there will be more stuff on there soon, because I have a bug. Thank you, Amy.
Amy was also summoned to Live Genre Chronicles channel on our Discord, which I made sure was linked in the chat if you are not already in there. Good grief. Anyway, yeah, if you want to have a feed to keep an ear to what we're doing, Live Genre Chronicles has a Blue Sky feed at notreallygenre.bsky.social. Becky and I have joint works feed at slimebug.bsky.social. And yeah, anything you want to plug, Leroy?
No, I don't know. If you live in New York, check out Sequence Break. I wrote for the what the fuck is it called? Oh, I wrote an essay for the catalog.
Yeah,
and
which is a really good essay.
Okay, really good, I guess. I'll append that.
Probably ending up on a reading list on one of my courses next year.
I'm on Mastodon at Was Not Why Not. I don't do any other social media. I don't believe in it.
Very fair.
Also check, what was the most recent Vextro compendium collection thing? Sequel to Gardens.
Yeah. Tunnels of Vextro. Did I plug that last time? I guess maybe I didn't. But yeah, I mean, yeah, please check out Tunnels of Extra. It's a great game about worms. Great series of games about worms.
Yep. Would you still love the series of games if it was about worms? Anyway,
Would you? Yeah, would you?
thanks for coming, everyone. I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their Saturday and weekend. We'll see you next time for Dragon